For 113 years, nobody dared to open what was locked away before the Titanic sank. Today, cameras finally crossed that line, and what they found inside might change everything we thought we knew about that night. Picture this: a safe, sealed tight, sitting alone for over a century in the cold, dark waters of the Atlantic Ocean, hidden between twisted metal and endless silence. This wasn't just any safe. It was like a time capsule, a tomb holding secrets from another world. The safe sat there, untouched, while generations came and went above the surface, while the world forgot the names of so many who sailed that night, while the ocean kept its secrets locked away in the darkness, 2.5 miles down, where sunlight never reaches and pressure could crush a person in seconds. Think about it. Someone locked this safe on purpose. They sealed documents and personal things inside, knowing the ship might never come back up. Who did this safe belong to? And here's the really strange part. It was never written down in any of the official ship records. Not on any map, not in any passenger list, nothing. It's like it was invisible, even before it sank. Why would someone do that? Why hide a safe on the most famous ship in the world? What were they protecting? Or maybe, what were they hiding? These questions sat at the bottom of the ocean for more than 100 years, waiting for someone brave enough to ask them again. The team that found it knew they were touching something sacred, something that belonged to people who never made it home. They moved slowly, with respect, documenting every single moment, every scratch on the metal, every spot of rust that told the story of time passing in the deep. When the cameras first spotted it, buried under layers of sand and debris, the crew went silent. They knew what they were looking at, a piece of history that was never supposed to be found, a mystery that was meant to stay buried forever. The decision to open it wasn't easy. Should they leave it alone? Let the past rest in peace? Or was there something inside that the world needed to see? Something that could answer questions we've been asking since 1912? In the end, curiosity won. But not the cheap kind. The kind that honors the people who came before us. The kind that says their stories matter, even now, especially now. The moment they started working on the safe, you could feel the weight of it. Not just the physical weight, but the weight of time. Of lives lived and lost. Of choices made in moments of terror and hope. The metal had changed over the years. Rust had eaten through parts of it. The ocean had tried to claim it completely, turning it into just another piece of the wreckage. But somehow, the seal held. Whatever was inside had been protected from the water, from the pressure, from everything the deep ocean could throw at it. They recorded every frame. The way the corroded metal looked under the lights. The sound it made when the locks finally gave way after being closed for so long. That crack, that snap of metal surrendering to time, echoed through the water like a whisper from the past. And then, slowly, carefully, the inside revealed itself. What they saw made everyone stop breathing for a second. The contents weren't gold or jewels or anything like that. They were personal, human, real. There was a diary. The pages were stained with water that had somehow seeped in over the decades, but the words were still there, faded but readable. Someone's thoughts. Someone's life written down in ink that refused to completely disappear. An old photograph came next. Black and white, edges worn soft by time. On the back there was writing, a dedication, words of love or friendship or maybe goodbye. The handwriting was elegant, the kind people don't really use anymore. And the faces in the photo, they looked so alive, so unaware of what was coming. Then they found a brooch, small, delicate, with initials carved into the back. They checked those initials against every passenger list they had, every crew member, every name associated with the Titanic. Nothing matched. Not a single record showed anyone with those letters. How is that possible? How does something so personal belong to someone who doesn't exist in any official record? The letters were next. Sealed envelopes that were never delivered, never opened by the people they were meant for. Some were addressed to names and places that seemed normal enough. Others had addresses that researchers couldn't track down. Even with modern technology, like they were written to people who lived in a world that no longer exists. Inside one envelope, they found a letter that started with, "If you're reading this, I didn't make it." That sentence hit different. It meant whoever wrote it knew there was a chance, knew the risk, and wanted to say something just in case. What do you write when you think those might be your last words? What's important enough to put down on paper when everything else is falling apart around you? There was also a map. Hand-drawn, not printed. Someone had sketched it out carefully, with notations in the margins. Strange symbols and marks that don't match any nautical charts from that time. Some researchers think it might be a deck plan showing where certain people were supposed to meet. Others think it could be something else entirely. A treasure map? An escape route? A reminder of where home was? Every item seemed to carry this feeling of urgency. Like someone knew they had to protect these things. Or hide them. Like in those final moments, when the ship was going down and people were screaming and the water was rising, someone made the choice to save these specific objects above everything else. That tells you something, doesn't it? About what mattered to them. About what they thought was worth preserving when everything else was lost. Think about being in that situation. The ship is tilting. Water is flooding in. You've got maybe minutes, maybe less. What do you grab? What do you protect? What's so important that you'd spend your last moments making sure it survives, even if you don't? For this person, it was these things. A diary, a photo, a brooch, letters, a map. These were the pieces of their life they couldn't let go. The proof that they existed, that they loved, that they mattered. When researchers started trying to piece together who this safe belonged to, things got even stranger. The initials on the brooch didn't match anyone in third class, where you'd expect something handmade like that to come from. They checked first class too. Second class, the crew, the staff, nothing. The diary mentioned names that don't appear in any survivor accounts or victim lists. It talked about conversations and events that don't line up with the known timeline of that night. Like whoever wrote it was living in a slightly different version of the same story everyone else was living. The letters had dates that don't make sense. Some were dated days before the ship even left port. Others were dated days after it sank. How do you write a letter from the future? Or from a time that never happened? Were these stories that got lost in the chaos? Were there passengers who somehow didn't get recorded? Secret travelers who had reasons to stay hidden? Or are these just echoes of people who got forgotten when the official records were made? Some researchers think the safe belonged to someone who was traveling under a false name. It happened more than you'd think back then. People escaping bad situations, starting over, running from the law or from their past. The Titanic was supposed to be a fresh start for a lot of folks, a chance to become someone new in America. Maybe this person wanted to keep both lives, the one they were leaving behind, locked in the safe, and the new one waiting for them in New York. But they never got there. Neither version of them did. Other researchers have a different idea. They think maybe this safe was a collection, that someone on board was gathering stories, documenting things they saw and heard, like an unofficial record of the voyage. Someone who wanted to capture the truth of what it was really like, not the polished version the ship company would tell. If that's true, then these aren't just random objects. They're evidence, witnesses to things that happened but never got written down officially. There's also the possibility that it's all much simpler and much sadder, that these belong to someone ordinary who just wanted their memories to survive, who knew they might not make it and couldn't stand the thought of everything they were just disappearing like they never existed at all. The truth is, we might never know for sure. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the mystery is part of what makes it matter. What we do know is that someone cared enough to protect these things, to seal them away, to give them a chance at survival when survival seemed impossible. And now, all these years later, we get to see them. We get to wonder about the person who chose them. We get to imagine their story, even if we can't know it for certain. In the end, maybe the most valuable thing in that safe isn't the objects themselves. Maybe it's the question they force us to ask. What would you choose to save if you only had minutes left? What pieces of your life are so important that you'd fight to preserve them, even at the very end? Would it be photos of people you love? Letters you wrote but never sent? Something that proves you were here? That you mattered? That you loved and were loved? Or would it be something else entirely? Something nobody else would understand but you? These questions don't have easy answers. They're personal. They're deep. They cut right to the heart of what it means to be human and to know that one day we won't be here anymore. The Titanic forces us to think about that, about how fragile everything is, about how quickly it can all change, about what lasts and what doesn't. Most of what was on that ship is gone now, dissolved into the ocean, scattered, lost. But some things survived. These things in the safe survived. And that means something. It means someone's choice worked. Their plan to preserve these pieces of themselves succeeded, even though they didn't survive themselves. There's something beautiful and terrible about that at the same time. The researchers are still studying everything they found. They're being careful with it, treating it like the sacred objects they are. They're trying to solve the mysteries, to connect the dots, to give names and faces to the story. But some mysteries aren't meant to be completely solved. Some questions are more valuable than answers. What this safe really gives us is a connection, a bridge across time, a reminder that the people on that ship weren't just names in a history book. They were real. They had hopes and fears and secrets and dreams just like we do. They loved people. They wrote letters. They kept diaries. They held onto objects that reminded them of home or of who they wanted to be. They were us, just in a different time, on a different ship, facing a different kind of ending. And when we think about them, when we wonder about their stories, we're doing what that person with the safe wanted us to do. We're remembering. We're caring. We're making sure they don't just disappear into history like they never mattered at all. That's the real treasure in that safe, not gold or jewels, but humanity, the stubborn, beautiful, heartbreaking insistence that our stories matter, that we matter, that the things we love and lose and fight to protect deserve to be remembered. So what do you think? What do you imagine was in that safe? What would you have put in there if you were on that ship, if you knew what was coming? Would it be proof of who you were, or proof of who you wanted to be? Would it be memories of your past or hopes for a future you wouldn't get to see? There's no wrong answer, only your answer. And that answer says something about you, about what you value, about what you think is worth saving when everything else is falling away. The ocean still keeps its secrets. 2.5 miles down in the darkness and cold and pressure, the Titanic rests. Parts of it are falling apart now, dissolving slowly back into the sea. One day, maybe sooner than we think, it'll be gone completely. But the stories won't be. The mysteries won't be. The questions won't be. They'll live on in safes like this one, in objects that survived against all odds, in the choices people made in their final moments, in the things they thought were too important to let die with them. And they'll live on in us, in our curiosity, in our need to connect with people we never met but somehow understand completely. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure out what matters. What's worth protecting? What's worth remembering? What deserves to survive? The person who locked that safe figured it out for themselves in the worst moment imaginable. They made their choice. They decided what was important enough to fight for. Now it's our turn to ask ourselves the same question. Not in a moment of crisis, hopefully, but in the quiet moments when we're honest with ourselves about what really matters. What would you save? What would you protect? What part of your story do you want to make sure survives no matter what? Think about it. Really think about it, because the answer might surprise you. It might tell you something about yourself you didn't know. It might change how you see what you have and who you are and what you're doing with the time you've got. The Titanic can teach us that if we let it. Not just about history or tragedy or how things can go wrong, but about choices, about values, about what it means to be human and to care about something bigger than ourselves. This safe, these objects, this mystery, they're all gifts from the past. Reminders that every life has a story worth telling, that every person matters, even if history forgets their name. So maybe we shouldn't try to solve every mystery. Maybe we should just honor them, wonder about them. Let them remind us to live lives worth remembering, to love people worth fighting for, to protect things worth saving, because one day we'll all be gone. The things we built will crumble, the words we said will fade, but the choices we made, the things we valued, the love we protected, those might just survive, locked away in our own versions of that safe. And maybe, just maybe, Someone in the future will find them and wonder about us, about who we were, about what mattered to us, about the stories we tried to tell. And in that wondering, we'll live on. Not as names in a record book, but as real people who loved and lost and chose to save something beautiful before the end. That's what the safe really holds. Not objects, but hope. The hope that we matter, that our stories count, that someone, somewhere, someday will care enough to remember. And isn't that what we're all really looking for? To be remembered, to matter, to know that when we're gone, something of who we were will remain. The Titanic gave that to the person with the safe, and now the safe gives it to us. A reminder, a question, a challenge. What will you choose to save? What story will you tell? What part of yourself will you fight to preserve? The answer is waiting for you to discover it, just like that safe waited for 113 years to share its secrets. Your story matters too. Don't let it sink without a trace. This is a work of fiction inspired by the real history of the Titanic. None of the events shown here actually happened. Our goal is to keep interest alive in forgotten stories and to spark deep thoughts about memory, time, and what we choose to hold on to. We hope it made you think. We hope it made you feel. And we hope it reminded you that every person's story matters, even the ones we'll never fully know.